Good evening and welcome to Metro Focus. I'm Jenna Flanagan. Here's a shocking statistic. In New York State, 9 people die every day as a result of opioid-related overdoses. Now, a massive new legal battle is accusing the family it says is behind the crisis, the Sacklers. New York State Attorney General Letitia James has announced an extensive lawsuit against the billionaire family who owns Purdue Pharma, the makers of OxyContin, the drug many claim sparked the national opioid crisis. The suit accuses the Sackler family of putting profits before patient safety, though the Sacklers and the companies in the lawsuit have vigorously denied the allegations. Will this new legal fight make a difference, and what other steps can be taken to combat this epidemic? Here to answer is Barry Meyer, a Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times reporter who was the first journalist to shed a national spotlight on the abuse of OxyContin in his recently re-released book, Painkiller, An Empire of Deceit and the Origin of America's Opioid Epidemic. Barry, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me.
An incredibly heavy topic to be following up on. So, of course, there's been so much study onto why there grew this need or this hunger for this drug. But when it came to the marketing of OxyContin, what is it exactly that the Sackler family is being accused of?
Well, they're being accused most basically of downplaying the risks, that is the risk of addiction, and hyping the benefits of the drug. Now, these drugs are valuable. They're used by cancer patients, by people who have long-running chronic pain, after accidents to deal with intense pain. But basically, the marketing of OxyContin was based on what we know now to be a lie, which was that it could be used safely for all kinds of pain, dental pain, sports pain, common types of back pain. And, you know, it was all predicated on the idea that because OxyContin had a special formulation, it was a long-acting drug. It lasted longer than traditional painkillers like Percocet or Vicodin, that it would be less prone to abuse. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, gave the Sacklers and Purdue Pharma the right to make that claim, but it became apparent very soon after the drug got onto the market in the mid-1990s that it was like candy to people who abuse drugs.
Okay, but see, you just named several other either industries or agencies that would have been steps along the way for OxyContin to get onto the market and flooded the way that it did. So it raises the question, who's really at fault here? Who's really responsible for this? Is it fair to just blame the Sackler family?
Absolutely not. I mean, you know, there is Purdue Pharma certainly bears a portion of the blame, but it's quite extraordinary. Again, you know, sort of having covered this for years and sort of laying it out in the book and in other places, it was a colossal failure of regulators, lawmakers, politicians. For years, I sat back and watched as the death toll started going up and up and up, year after year after year, and there was no one who stood up to try and stop it, to do anything about it. Maybe a handful of people, handful of doctors, handful of advocates.
But a handful against a wave of...
Against a mountain, and against an industry whose lobbyists were flush with cash and could stop any law that might have forced people to pull back.
So let's talk a little bit about this lawsuit that's happening now with the state of New York. First, I want to back up a little bit and say that this is going on after the state of Oklahoma also had a similar lawsuit that they brought against Purdue Pharma and the Sacklers. And I believe they won, did they? Did they get a settlement?
Well, there was a settlement.
Yeah.
So basically in a settlement, everybody says, forget everything that we said before today. You know, we raised all kinds of horrible claims against you, and we said you were terrible, but you know what, we're going to take your money now. You don't have to admit that you did anything wrong, so we'll just call it a day and go our separate ways. That's what happened in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Here in New York State and in many other states, you have situations where these lawsuits are going forward. So the question is, will they come to trial? Will the claims be proven out at trial, or will they too be settled out along the way?
Well, what do we know from with the settlement that Oklahoma was given? Did that money go to something? Did it go to opioid treatment? Did it go to prevention programs? What became of that funding?
So basically, it was $270 million was the size of the settlement, and I believe about 120 or so of that went to fund an addiction treatment study center at an Oklahoma university, sort of to look at better ways of treating people who are addicted to drugs. About $10 or $15 million went directly to treating people addicted to opioids. A large chunk, $60 million, went to lawyers' fees, as always. And, that's how that broke down.
Yeah.
Now, that structure, is not going to happen in every place or with every company because, there's just so many addiction research treatment centers you need. A lot of this money should be going to addiction treatment, dealing with the crisis that we have.
So when we're talking about the lawsuit that New York State, the Attorney General, is bringing against the Sacklers and Purdue Pharma, I'm also wondering, how is it almost worth it then if this could be dragged out in court if it does go to trial? Because I understand that there's several different aspects of treatment and treatment drugs that Purdue Pharma is also involved in. There's a lot of different ways that they can sort of present themselves and say, actually, no, yes, we did produce this drug, but at the same time, we also produced this particular I guess not necessarily cure, but something that works against addiction treatment drug,
right.
Or that we've donated money to this addiction treatment center, et cetera. Like, how difficult a road would this to be to take them to court?
Well, in terms of those particular things, they've only given money for addiction treatment as a result of the Oklahoma settlement.
Well,
they really
a good lawyer can spin anything.
But they hadn't done it prior to that. So, I mean, the record's pretty clear on that. They actually they considered producing addiction treatment drugs. They got patents on them, but they never actually went to market with those drugs. There are many drugs to treat addiction, or several of them, that are already on the market. In terms of what the claims are, what the plaintiffs, the states in this case, would have to show is essentially that Purdue and other opioid makers were violating the law, that they knowingly were marketing these drugs in a way that was creating more addiction than one would want, costs for the states and localities in terms of addiction treatment and policing and hospital costs. In some ways, these lawsuits are similar to the lawsuits I covered back in the late 1990s for the Times against the tobacco industry. People smoked, they got sick from smoking, states had large costs related to the treatment of those people who became ill with lung cancer and other diseases, and basically the states were saying to the tobacco industry, okay guys, it's your time to pay. That's essentially what's going on here.
All right, so then there is a roadmap, let's say, for something like this to actually work out for the state. So one of the other things that I did want to ask is that so much of the conversation around the Sackler family has been about their involvement with Purdue Pharma, of course, the pushing of OxyContin as a drug, but they have been really, really involved in philanthropic endeavors when it comes to the arts. There's hardly a museum that you can go to where they haven't given a significant amount of money. Is that correct?
It's fascinating. When I was younger, I loved going to the Metropolitan Museum here in New York and go into the Temple of Dendur, where these wonderful Egyptian artifacts are. I loved archaeology, and I loved walking around that particular building. And it was only later, when I was researching Painkiller, that I came across the name Sackler. And I thought, wait a minute, I've seen this name before. And yes, it was like, that's the wing of the Metropolitan Museum where the Temple of Dendur is. That name is all over the place. It's at Harvard University. It's at the National Gallery. It's at the Guggenheim. It's at the Tate Gallery in London, at medical schools in Israel, all over the world. The family has been very successful, or had, I should say, been very successful in separating their philanthropic giving from their business fortune. And the question of where was all this money coming from? It's great to have a Temple of Dendur, but is it coming from drug sales? And if so, is it coming from legitimate drug sales, or are parts of it also coming indirectly from sales of these drugs on the street? And that's what people are looking at now. So there's been a sort of public scrutiny of where the Sackler money has come from. And as a result of that, some museums, and a growing number of museums, are rejecting it.
Of course, we saw that with the Tate Modern in London, and that incredible protest/performance piece at the Guggenheim, which was really intense. And I understand that that actually had the dropping of all of the prescription papers, I guess, had a larger point to make. Was that
well,
correct?
It certainly had a connection to the litigation that was going on. In one of the lawsuits, the lawsuit filed by the state of Massachusetts, there's a snippet from an internal memo in which Richard Sackler, the son of the founder, one of the founders of Purdue Pharma, says, we're going to produce a blizzard of prescription. It was kind of like a rallying call he made at a launch, of OxyContin, right when the drug was going onto the market. And so this dumping of prescriptions within the Guggenheim kind of looked like a snowfall or a blizzard of prescriptions.
Well, for more information on that and the rest, of course, of the sordid and complicated tale of OxyContin and the opioid crisis, of course, I cannot recommend your book, Painkiller, enough. It's sobering to read, to understand how we got here.
Again, I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks again.